90.7 KPFK, Los Angeles.
IMRU presents Unzipped with Cary Harrison, exploring the complexity of human desire, where intimacy means insight, uncovering the truth about sex and relationships, delving into the science of seduction, your sex, your stories, and everything in between. This is Unzipped with Cary Harrison.
And it is Unzipped. Welcome. Well, we are live streaming right now on Substack. And coming up, I just want to let you know, we're going to open the phones to find out what topics and what subjects are relevant to you during these times. Why? Because your voice matters. And doing the sort of content that means something to you and gives you strength and empowers you and helps you get ahead is exactly what we are committing to do here. So later on, we're going to have open phones and we're going to get your direct input. Live streaming right now on Substack and YouTube. You can simply Google Cary Harrison Substack or YouTube so we can stay connected. You can easily find us also live at kpfk.net. Just go to kpfk.net. Also, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at caryharrison.com, caryharrison.com. There you're going to get a and I haven't even been drinking. Not for years, actually, but it sure sounded like it. There at caryharrison.com, you're going to get a transcript of the entire show, plus access to clips and stuff that we simply will not and cannot do anymore on the radio. And that's our newsletter at caryharrison.com, which reminds me back in the good old days when I started, we used to have so much fun on the radio. Let me tell you, I was on a rock station. We did bits. You know, this was the era of Howard Stern. Like, we really could do the stuff that people were thinking and talking about in real life. Now we have to be so formal, so polite, speak in code, use metaphors, use analogies, because, well, you just don't dare do anything. And then you wonder how we end up where we are today, which is, where's the Democratic Party in this desperate emergency for life and death? Tomorrow, they're going to do an action. What does that mean? What is an action? Seriously, what is an action? To me, that sounds like a protest. We're going to hold up paper signs. Or does it mean they're going to take action? No, they didn't say that. They said they were going to have an action. So again, indirect, vague, unclear, and you get vague, unclear, indirect results, which is why we're going to open up the phones in about 20 minutes. And we want to get your direct input into what you want the show to do for you. And we're going to do that for you. Well, we do have a show for you tonight that's going to knock the patriotic blinders right off your star-spangled eyes. Meet Mike Williams. He's a combat medic. He's a musician, living proof that Uncle Sam has a curious way of thanking his veterans with red tape, broken promises, and a nice helping of financial ruin for way too many. He's patched up soldiers on the battlefield only to watch them get bled dry back home, and his song, The Price We Paid, lays it all bare. The debt, the despair, the kind of betrayal that makes you wonder if the enemy was uniquely overseas after all. And speaking of betrayal, let's talk about the Veterans Administration. Agent Orange, yes, it took them 33 years to admit it was poisoning vets. Burn pits? Well, they resisted that one for decades, too, until a comedian had to shame Congress into action. And now the VA is getting gutted again. And that's everyone in the VA. That's straight people. That's gay people. That's what used to be called 1 month ago DEI, or Live Upright Humans. And it's all done in the name of efficiency. Because what could be more inefficient than destroying everything? Nothing says support our troops like firing them from the jobs that keep them alive. And it seems that sarcasm seems to be the only route that connects with any of us these days. So let's jump into it, Mike. You've seen the battlefield from two angles, frontline medic and back home survivor. I want to welcome you to the show.
And Cary, it's great to be here.
I know I'm not over-egging the pudding here by being like thunderously direct here, but we really need it at this point. You've spent years patching up soldiers in the field. How does it feel watching your fellow veterans get left to bleed out again financially back home?
Well, it's interesting because the dichotomy on this is it's very clear to me where when I'm in the field and I have guys that get busted up, and I'm sorry, I should say when I have soldiers that get busted up, yeah, I'm there. I'm there to patch them up and to keep them above ground is the pleasant way we say that. And it's so interesting because I'll put every single piece of my existence into that individual to stabilize them, to keep them living. And then I hand them off to a flight medic, to a helicopter, and I never see him again. And so you're always wondering, did they make it? And that's one piece. And the second piece is when you come home and you see your brothers and sisters just getting shafted. And I need to be careful here because the VA is the VA is doing the best they can. There's clerical errors that occur. But if you have an unpaid bill that goes to collections versus goes to the individual that's looking to pay it, because that's the part that is not understood. I didn't understand that. I mean, I'm going to roll back here for a second, Cary. What I'm saying is when I was leaving the military, I got busted up pretty bad. I'm missing body parts, but you can see all the ones on the outside. So I'm going to call that a win. And I was sent for a medical evaluation to see what disability I would have. And I was in a waiting room with guys missing arms and legs. And I just simply said, no, these guys need it more than I do. I tapped out. It took me close to 25 years to actually go back and look at my VA benefits. And once I did, and they found out, oh, golly, it's time for another surgery. I didn't realize I was going to have to pay for that. And there's so many people, there's so many veterans that are in that position where they don't realize, oh, crap, I got to pay for this and I can't pay for it. And that's what happened to my brother. Yeah, he had medical bill that was mismanaged in the VA and it was sent to collections. He lost his house. He's got a wife and 2 kids. He did everything he possibly could to take care of them. That was from his service in Iraq and what he did afterwards.
And we know, Mike Williams, that if it is service related, they'll often cover the medical care. But if you can't specifically and provably, with incredible evidence, link it to service related injury, they can dismiss it and have you pay out of pocket, which millions of people have that story, which also leads to financial bankruptcy. Let's talk for a second about diversity in the military firsthand. Armchair generals, or guys that aren't generals at all, have become generals, poof, overnight, head of the entire military system, who think the battle place is no place for inclusion. Yet it's the inclusion that creates the integrity that allows you to feel confident that you've got an actual team working together. I'm talking about DEI, a term that many people hadn't heard of 6 months ago, but it's gotten rid of everyone who technically isn't a white male.
It's interesting you say this because DEI, I'll give this to you in terms of being in the field. I had the honor of serving with 3rd Special Forces Group. Well, I'll make this clear. I was Special Operations and I was attached to 3rd Special Forces Group. And downrange, when you're deployed, DEI doesn't come into this. You see, if the person next to you is doing their job, you're going to give them the respect. And if you are going to take care of them as they're going to take care of you, in terms of if bad things happen, we're all going to light it up. DEI is not part of that perspective. You respect the professionalism of that individual. And it doesn't matter. I mean, the joke that we have in the Army is we're all the same color, green. Okay. I didn't plan on wearing this on purpose, but yeah, we're all green.
For those of you watching on Substack, you can go to the Cary Harrison Substack. Just Google Cary Harrison Substack or Cary Harrison YouTube. You'll see that Mike is wearing green, maybe for St. Patrick's Day, maybe because he knew we were going to actually mention this, but it sounds more like St. Patrick's Day. Either way, it's good to be able to physically see you. And I wonder if every member of Congress had to spend a year living as a disabled veteran on VA benefits, how long do you think it would take for policy to change?
Cary, that's a very interesting question. I do know that there are brothers and sisters that I've served with that they can tell you they're very careful about how they spend their money and what they do. I do believe that would be enlightening. It comes down to this, where you don't know, you don't have an understanding of the challenges until you got to take them yourself.
Can you tell us, Mike Williams, what some of your injuries were? Otherwise, we're going to try to guess. We may be wrong, but everyone comes back. It can be everything from PTSD to physical damage. You're obviously coping with something this many years later.
I got a part of my side was torn up, and part of my right hand lower side was blown up, and been through 5 surgeries, and then my shoulder was busted up pretty bad, and that's been rebuilt. And I was in jump school and busted up my foot, and eventually I'll need to have that fixed. But the thing that, Cary, I want you to understand that when you're serving, especially on teams, especially be it, and I need to make this very clear, special operations is a very, very huge umbrella. And underneath that, you have smaller units, smaller umbrellas like Rangers and Special Forces. I had the honor of serving with Special Forces, but I don't have a Green Beret. All right, I didn't earn that, but I respect the hell out of these guys. I mean, they're amazing, and the fact that I got to work with them, I'm honored. But here's the point. You don't want to go home broke. You don't want to drop off a mission because you're busted up. You want to take that from start to finish. And that's what we do.
So here we are today. People for decades have reasonably, responsibly, reliably, soberly talked about how the VA has fallen short. You pointed out there's a lot of clerical issues. It's a fact. It's like a giant it is a giant corporation with giant hospitals and lots of doctors, and things are not perfect. They're not perfect in Switzerland, where you get the greatest bang for your buck and the finest doctors who ever lived, who make boo-boos, who put on the wrong Band-Aid. These things happen. But now we have on purpose taking a inefficient system, and instead of making it more efficient, which I think has been the goal in the last, say, 4 years, it is now to purposely make it 10 times more inefficient. We have millions of vets looking at that. Is everyone aware of that, or is this just part of the zeitgeist of madness and chaos that we're all just trying to understand? I would think you guys are well trained to look at stuff and get it for what it is.
Cary, what I've seen personally, and with my brothers and sisters that I've had contact with after service, it's a slow drip where all of a sudden that one benefit you had is gone, and then another, and then another. What we're seeing right now is definitely an aggressive cost-cutting means, but I want to be careful here because there are services that have been stripped back over the years, and it's done very carefully over time. We're just in a position now where what we're seeing is much more aggressive. The brothers and sisters that I've served with, I don't see any change where they're at today than they were at 5 months ago. But I do know that we're looking to save the taxpayers money. And I don't know where that's going to end up.
Well, I wish we all were looking to do that, but we haven't been told yet where that money that gets saved actually goes, since Congress, and I, pardon me for saying all of this, but Congress has already apportioned this money. It's sitting in a gigantic bucket ready to be distributed. So suddenly canceling the program that distributes the money is still in the bucket. Somebody's going to collect it. Who is that somebody? And that money might belong to you. It might belong to me. And you're the one that went out and made it possible for us to live stream this show tonight, to make it possible for us to have what freedom we still would like to think that we enjoy. You made that possible. And so for me to watch this, it's mind numbing. And I just wonder, I don't think there's a community room for all military people to actually discuss this back and forth and make a plan. So in many ways, you're like the rest of us. We're all little isolated molecules spread out everywhere with no union, so to speak, where we can figure out what to do next. So that, sorry about the AI, is blowing balloons up behind me because I put my fingers up. That's scary,
nice.
isn't it? Yeah, that's scary. So in many ways, these conversations being overheard right now by straight vets, LGBT vets, if there is such a thing anymore, technically, legally, maybe not, because the president said we're erasing you from public life. And I think by defunding a lot of these programs, they're erasing all of us, no matter who we are, from public life. And then if you never really existed, then there isn't a problem to be solved. And as a military guy, your job is to problem solve. That's very deep, I know, but I don't have an answer.
And Cary, you're spot on in what you're saying. In the field, especially with the teams that I worked with, there are so many times where you need to get creative. I mean, there's so many times where I was in a mission and I was thinking to myself in the back of my head, I never trained for this shit. And I'm sorry,
we're gonna dump that. Wendell. Please make sure you dump that. Not your fault,
sorry.
Mike.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Old school terrestrial broadcasting. That's all.
So, I've encountered events where I was questioning. It's like, well, we never had a block of instruction on fill in the blank, and we took care of things. And it's nothing heroic. I mean, we're just trying to stabilize regions. I mean, that's a majority of what I did for 10 years, is getting dropped into places, working with the most excellent people, and trying to fix something that was broken for far longer than possibly I've been living. So when I step back, and I really want to address your point directly, Cary, and that's where, when I look at things from a political context, understand that I'm never paid for my politics. I'm paid to do a job. And I want to do that job well. What comes back on the back end? That's perspective.
We're talking right now to Mike Williams. He's a battle-tested medic, a lifelong musician. He blends frontline expertise, IT precision, and deep compassion to heal through both action and music. And Mike, you're good enough to come on today, and we really wanted to sort of and we did. We talked about DEI, which is a giant chunk. In fact, it was painted over with rollers over an entire wall, erasing from public life everybody that would check a box that wasn't like me, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. You unexist. All of that having made our military the finest in all of human history. Flashing forward, you've turned your experience into music. Your song, The Price We Paid, do you think that song can shame America into finally honoring its debts to veterans, or are we possibly beyond your and my reach to a government that can even hear us?
Cary, I'm going to take one word you said. It's shame, and no, I just want to open eyes. I'll give you, this is how I unpack things. You have a duffel bag. I'm sure we've all seen one. It's a big, ugly green bag, and there's usually a padlock on the top. Emotionally, it takes a significant amount of courage to unlock the padlock, and it takes a lot more to unpack it. As I'm unpacking my duffel bag, this is something I encountered, and it's something from my heart, I want to share with other people. It's like, hey, you can take this or you can leave this, but understand the beautiful people that have laid down their lives for our country, and they're getting the shaft. Wake up.
It occurs to me, and this is why I really always enjoy talking to military people, because unlike many of us, we might be disciplined, we might have been trained, we might have assumed a certain skill craft for the benefit of company or the benefit of our own personal careers. But you guys are actually, you go through boot camp where you have to learn how to think, and you have to take accountability if you make a mistake. You don't get to make an excuse and, oh, okay, he was tired. No, that doesn't fly in your world. So that's why I like your perspective, because you don't get to just fall back on, oh, well. The government, the modern one that we're dealing with right now, plus the previous ones, have spared no expense sending people to war. Why does it suddenly find fiscal responsibility? Like, oh my God, this is the most important thing. That same government has suddenly found fiscal responsibility when it's time to take care of veterans afterward. Any insight?
Well, I remember I was on a deployment one time, and there were people high ranking they were senators that came down, and they were to, be part of this, or at least to see the operation that we were part of. And the first thing they did is they asked, who's from a certain state? And if you weren't from that state, they wouldn't talk to you. And I thought, that's interesting. And there was nobody from California, so I wasn't able to talk to anybody. But it was interesting to see their focus being that they were looking to make sure that they could address the people that voted them into office. And as far as the actual care for the individuals downrange, the people deployed, that wasn't their objective. Their objective was to handshake the people that could get them reelected. And I'm not saying that this is any conspiracy theory. It's not. It really isn't. It's just amazing how you can see how people are motivated by what pays their bills.
Mike Williams, if you could rewrite the rules of veteran care from scratch, where would you start?
Compassion. It's that simple. Compassion.
I would love to say we all know what that means, but I have to assume, not the people listening to this show, but generally speaking, people have an IQ of 80 or below. At least that's what it's now looking like. Tell us, what is compassion?
You take people that chose to serve, myself, and my brothers and sisters, and we all come back. As soon as soon as you hold up your hand, you say, "So help me God," and you serve in the military, you're going into a meat grinder, and some of them are a little bit more rough than others. And what I mean by compassion is when they come back, say, "Welcome home. Let's take care of you." That's compassion. And there's a lot of
Well,
red tape.
if America won't listen to reason, whatever America is to any of us anymore, what might be the one thing that veterans as a group, somehow, if there were a way where all of you could talk at the same time, what might you do to get the country's attention?
Cary, that's a powerful question. To get
And
their
there's no
attention, I
answer
would
for it.
well, I just say, take a look at these people that are torn up. Open your eyes. Wake up. Let's take care of them.
Well, I appreciate your coming on and helping us understand this scenario, because a lot of people are looking at Medicare, at Social Security, at this, at that. There's so much chaos that we forget that the government itself, part of its biggest employment base are in fact veterans. So it's not just, taking the teeth out of the VA and making it less effective, less efficient when it's supposed to be more efficient, but also firing people whose paychecks, and because they have disciplined skill sets, are no longer able to work. And so it's a giant kind of elephant in the middle of the room that most people don't know is there. How do they follow you? How do we get to hear your music and learn what you know?
So, right now, I'm working on two separate projects. Well, integrated projects, and Veteran Debt. And that's where my music is initially being presented. And I'm part of the Harmonetics project, which is a separate focus. And Veteran Debt, they deal with people who have debt, veterans who have debt, because what is very well known is the ideation of suicide. If you have a massive amount of debt and you're busted up and you can't work enough to pay off your debt, life insurance looks pretty good at that point. The part that I work with the Harmonetics project is being able to help harmonize the individual so they can move forward.
Mike, if you don't mind me asking, again, we're not experts. People are smoking a cigarette and driving, or pot or whatever, and they may not get life insurance. Looks pretty attractive. So can you help us know what that means?
I'll give you a direct snapshot. I had a very clear conversation with a veteran, Michael Thorne. I was a combat medic, and he was too. And we were in different decades because I served from 1990 to 2000. He served from 2000 to, I believe, about 2008. And I made a comment to him. I got married for one reason. It's going to sound bad, Cary, but my wife put up with my crap. Okay, you're not going to bleep me on this, right?
No, that's a great word. We love it.
And she put up with my crap for 7 years as my fiance. And when I was in Bosnia, I thought, with 1 million plus landmines on the ground, the best thing I could possibly do is to give back to this beautiful lady. If I come home in a bag, she gets $100,000. And I thought that was a unique experience to myself. And this gentleman, Michael Thorne, he said, well, that's interesting, because he thought the same thing when he was in Iraq. And at that time, the SGLI, the Servicemen Group Life Insurance, had gone up to $250,000. And he thought the same thing. And what people miss, outside of the fact that there's 44 veterans every day that end their lives. I'm not making this up. This is a study from the University of Alabama and Duke University. In collaboration, they came up with these numbers, but Cary, the number one cause of death in the military is accidents. And if you're getting out and you don't think you have anything to live for outside of your broken body, accident looks pretty attractive. That breaks my heart.
Yeah. It seems to me that we're going to need to, and I'm opening up the phones very shortly in just a couple of minutes to get people's take on what they would like to see in a show like this. Unlimited open ears, because we're here for that purpose. And, you know, I think courses in resiliency and teaching people how to cope, and also activism, how to connect with a government that doesn't want to listen. Things like that can be useful tools to all of us. And if it helps one, it helps the other. And I think that's the central core of military thinking, isn't it? All for one, one for all. You guys are a unit.
It's funny. We fight like brothers and sisters until somebody throws a punch on the outside, and then it's game on.
Well, let's finish with how people can follow you and hear your latest song or observe your projects, Mike Williams.
So the best way to at least share my music right now is End Better in Debt. That's where it's being broadcast right now.
Okay.
We're going to do something for D-Day that's going to be fantastic. And Cary, I look forward to being able to give that to you once we have that all put together.
Well, thank you, my friend. I really appreciate your staying up. Well, East Coast, it would be late. West Coast, still very early. Enjoy your dinner. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm wishing you all the best. And I'm going to make good on putting together some courses in resiliency and other things, because it's critically necessary. I'm seeing it now. Thanks to you, Mike Williams, and I very much appreciate you coming on today.
I'm honored. Thank you, Cary.
Thank you so much. Cary Harrison with you. This is Unzipped. It's a special variant of IMRU Radio. Also, the Cary Harrison Files. Coming up, we are going to open up the phones. We are going to take your calls. We want to know what you want. What do you need in good old-fashioned public radio, FM broadcasting from the strongest FM west of the Mississippi? For years, we decide, we throw it on. You listen. You don't get to choose. Spotify, you can pick the song you want to hear. Radio, oh, no. You wait. If it's music, you might wait 3 hours for the song you want to hear. We're going to change that. I'm going to change that. I want to hear what you want to hear, and we will go make that happen for you, including putting together webinars and courses to make us all be more geared up, more resilient during these impossible times, even if it's just to survive. Other people will have the chops for action-oriented stuff. So we're going to do all of that. That has nothing to do with your calling in. I'm just letting you know I'm passionate about that. So that's going to happen. And you can always learn more at CaryHarrison.com. Sign up for our newsletter. We're also live streaming on Substack and YouTube. Just Google Cary Harrison Substack or Cary Harrison YouTube. You'll be able to see the live stream, formerly Twitter, now known as X, and everything else with a chip and a signal. As we continue, we're going to open up the phones at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. I want to hear from you. What do you want to hear on the radio?
IMRU presents Unzipped with Cary Harrison, exploring the complexity of human desire and everything in between.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? Well, you call low-cost airlines, because they specialize in cheap flights, in discount hotel rooms, in cheap car rentals, and with the best price guarantee. Often 75% off. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795. 901-235-1795.